you have your cell phones, I know this is kind of a typical thing in this, but just make sure you silence your cell phones. That would be great. So thank you for coming to celebrate Matt. Matt was not big on formality and formal events, and he'd much rather just sit and have a conversation with you. If you were ever in a social setting with him, I hope you got a chance to just sit and have one of those conversations. And so that's kind of how we wanted to treat today. I'm Phil. I married into the Haehlen family about 34 years ago. I married Matt's niece, his only Haehlen niece. Met Uncle Matt about 40 years ago. The family would like to thank everyone for being here, for your connections with Matt, whether it's as a family or a friend. And today we just want to share some stories. We might laugh, we might cry, we just want to have some time together and kind of reflect on Matt's life. So, to start things out, I think Andy's got some things to share.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. I'm Andy, Matt's son. Thank you all for coming to share your memories of his life, which affected so many people in so many ways. Matt Haehlen was a unique man. He wore many hats through his life, and I believe each of those hats were a natural expression of who he was as a person. The first evidence we saw of my dad as an artist was a paper-mache picture he created in high school. It depicted him and his two brothers, Charlie and Mark, in an abstract setting. I've never seen that medium used before, and I must not have been the only one to think so, because when he submitted it to an art competition in high school, we won. Even then, he was meticulous, listing the year, his name, high school, along with the diagram of who each person was on the back of the picture, just written in Sharpie. Decades later, after my mom died, he turned again to art, this time through sculptures he made of old metal parts from bygone eras. He once told me that the sculptures were his way of organizing the chaos he felt in his life into something that made sense. He did that for several years, and when he was done, he was done. So it was really cool to see. I have one of those pieces in my bedroom. I got a few others that were in the family. I don't think he even tried to make them beautiful. I think they were just really therapeutic expressions of his being. It was really pretty cool. I'm proud to say I carried on his legacy of service to our country. My dad joined the Navy when he was 17. When he called his mother up just before leaving to tell her hey, join the Navy and about to ship out. Her response revealed a lot about why he left, when she simply said, "Well, I'm sure that's for the best." He never really fitted with the other sailors, but when they needed the best radar man to fix a problem, they always came to Petty Officer Haehlen. During the last week of his life, I had the pleasure of hearing several Navy stories about he stayed up all night to fix a nuclear system, or when he discovered a manufactured error, a radar system. It was inspiring to hear, but the level of determination and humility, at the same time receiving so little reward and so little praise. That was just him, determined and humble. So it's not surprising that my dad would follow up his service by entering a career where he could fix things, this time much smaller things. Matt received his undergraduate chemistry from George Fox. After following my mom to school, she was quite a looker, at the same department where I received my undergraduate chemistry at George Fox. After that, he went to dental school at OHSU, and then went off to find a job. This is one of the stories he told me in that week at the hospital. So this is how he started working in those missions. His mom was trying to help him find a job, and somehow got a phone number to a company that told her they could give him a job in sales. Now, can anybody imagine my dad working in sales? But if you know my dad, he's not exactly the sales type. But being the faithful person he was, he went along with it to honor his mother and showed up at the time and the place. So I think it was maybe one of the first houses they went to happened to be owned by a retiring dentist. I forget his name. But he worked for this outfit called Village Missions. After talking to him about it all, my dad expressed interest in the job, but thought he was unlikely to get it since there was a couple other applicants ahead of him. Well, a few weeks later, he got a call from the same retired missionary, or it might have been Mr. Duff, the head of the mission, saying that the other candidates fell through and they needed Matt. That was the start of his long career in village missions. What followed was many years of service, hard work, travel, sometimes with me and Jaime, and many enduring friendships. He viewed the missionaries as family, as well as targets for his insatiable search for spiritual truths. I'm so very grateful for all they did for him through his life. My dad spent many years after his time with Village Missions worked for Wendel Family Dental and Willamette Dental. During the time, he taught high school students to be dental assistants at the local skill center. In fact, the only knowledge I have of the skill center was from one of the students who I ended up dating. He set us up, of course, in typical fashion, showing up at the house one day with what could be described as a, hey, check this girl out approach. I think I unshowered, I think I was just in my comfies. His time teaching was another instance where he illustrated the old saying, actions speak louder than words. Perhaps the most important role Matt filled, at least to me and Jaime, was that of a father. Once again, his actions were what mattered most. I saw him work incredibly hard to provide a good living for our family. He was an amazing DIYer, doing everything from automotive work, including renovating an RV into a dental clinic, to construction, where he built my mom an office in our basement. I remember helping him raise the walls and angry everything in concrete in our basement. There was nothing he couldn't fix, seemingly nothing he could not figure out. I remember him making me a wooden sword, axe, and shield to play with, relating them to the armor of God. At some point, he built huge entertainment center that we used for years in both of our houses. I cannot imagine a more capable and resourceful father. Matt truly loved our mom, and despite their differences, that love became more and more apparent the older they got. He was so devoted to her in the last years of her battle with cancer. And I'll always remember how intensely he loved her, again with actions, more than words. My dad was a truth seeker. In the last years, he and I would spend hours at a time delving into the mysteries of human existence and spirituality. He never chided me for asking hard questions or for doubting what I learned in my youth, but instead acknowledged the importance of the search. It seemed that I couldn't make him angry by attacking any of his positions, because rather than being tied to a certain set of ideals, he really only cared about truth, wherever it's found. And he did all of this while maintaining his faith in God, which is quite remarkable. It's been said that people often fall somewhere on a spectrum between those that are nice but not good, and those who are good but not nice. Anyone who knew Matt well would know towards which end of that spectrum. Being nice is certainly useful and pleasant, but I think the real measure of a man is his goodness, and Matt Haehlen was very, very good.
The family would love to hear stories from anybody that's willing to come on up here and share a story about Matt. It could be how you met, or it could be just an encounter you had, or a special memory you have of Matt. So, and if you can come up to the microphone, that'd be great. If you've got a booming voice, you might be able to do it from where you're sitting, but we would love to have people come up and share their memories at this time.
Everyone's always waiting for who's going to be first, so I guess I will. I love Matt, and I know he's safe in the hands of a gracious God, as well as Joyce. Love them both. He didn't build everything in the basement, Andrew.
Yeah.
Actually, we went over there and did a couple of things that he could have simply done, but he passed it off to my son and I. So we got to build him some shelves and some different things over there. I got a lot of Matt's work in my mouth. But probably one of my favorite things is that when he went to work for Wendel for a little while, he did the IV sedation clinic. He'd call me and say, "Hey Marty, you want some free dental work?" I'm thinking, why Matt? You always made it free before. What's the difference? So I'd go over there and I do the IV sedation thing, and he never put the needles in. He was always trying to help other people do it all right. He was a good overseer. He let me put toilets in his buildings, let me put roofs on his buildings, pressure wash his fences, his driveways, clean his cars and stuff. We fished together, we did all kinds of fun stuff together, dinner after dinner, meal after meal. You're right, there was some things about his heart that he was always searching for, but I'm so glad that the search always ended up in truth. He always wanted the truth. It gratified my heart knowing that Pastor Steve and him had a great relationship. I got to be with Andrew and Matt in his hospital room, and just before he went home and went to be with the Lord at that too. So he's a brother that I'm going to miss every day until I see Jesus, until I see him and others that have walked in the same path of faith. So Jaime, Andrew, love you guys. Been praying for you every day since. And Andrew's got my phone number, Jaime. If you want it, you're all welcome to call, and I'd be glad to come and take you out to lunch. Okay? All right, love you guys. Who's next?
Don't be shy.
Hi, I'm James. I'm Joyce's brother. Your dad was, I think, 22 or 23 when I met him, and I was in their wedding. I was 3 years old in their wedding. Joyce was really mad at me for rolling around the floor. Wedding, because I had stomach ache, and it was not my day, as she reminded. This is not her. No, sorry. But what occurs to me now, thinking about how Matt married into our weird family, he just embraced having a little brother so eagerly. He was a great big brother, and I have 4 older sisters, so suddenly there was this guy, and he taught me how to play chess. I never beat him at chess. I taught my son how to play chess, and he beat me after a couple of months. He taught me how to draw Fred Flintstone. I can still draw Fred Flintstone for some reason, because Matt knew how to draw Fred Flintstone. I wasn't even allowed to watch the Flintstones, but I could draw Fred Flintstone. Talking about Matt's insatiable thirst for knowledge of all kinds, true knowledge and not true knowledge. He just devoured everything. And I don't know what it is about focused enthusiasms. Do you guys all remember the Weimar Republic money phase, where he just framed?
Not at all.
Yeah, he framed hundreds of thousands of worthless Deutschmarks.
Thanks.
Well, that's right. Inflation was it's a billion Deutschmark bill. But yeah, and I remember having conversations with him when I was 8 about how UFO sightings were just proof of the visions of the prophet Ezekiel. Fascinating. I still think about that, and it was never confirmed by the X-Files or anything. I wrote a book a few years ago about something no one has any reason to be interested in, and he bought a copy of a book that sold maybe 300 copies and read it with post-it notes and asked me questions about it. It was great to get to know him more intensely back in 2015, and I wish the circumstances had been better, but I know that his brothers aren't with us, but he was a great brother.
closely with him, and then these were his schedulers. Oh, it's Tammy.
That's for all your names.
He was a great person to work for. I think he was highly looked up to in the dental community. He did so much. He taught us so much, just about everything. I don't think I would be where I'm at in my life if it wasn't for him. I really thank him for everything that he did. He was such a great teacher. He wasn't necessarily the nicest person sometimes. I think we just worked well together. I don't know if he was great. I think one thing that I will always remember is air, water, then air. Every time. He was just such a great, teacher. He was so lovable and so funny, and once you got to know him, he was like a big teddy bear. He was very, very scary at times. Maybe made some people cry at my work. I'm not going to mention any names, but he never made me cry, and he was just always a great person to be around. He was so funny and so loving, and I'm definitely going to miss him.
He brought so much into so many people's lives on so many different levels, whether it was a patient, a coworker, or supervisors. He just made you feel like he was giving you the undivided attention that you deserved in that moment. And we all grew up with him. Had the wonderful pleasure of working with him at Wendel, and then later, Andrew and I both teach at the Skill Center. So we have a great opportunity working with him and the students coming into the dental profession. So he's definitely left his mark on all of us as well as future dental professionals in the community.
He probably scarred us for life, because I don't think we can work well with anybody but him. You're not Dr. Haehlen, you're not that great.
I'm just curious how many people have his initials in their
Carved
files.
into their primary. Or their amalgams, they're huge amalgams. Quite a lot of people. Marty probably has. Carved
Yeah,
into
if you did your dental work somewhere, you probably have his initials in there.
I'm a gold crown that has his initials forever. But yeah, he was great.
Was it at Wendell where he started going by Dr. Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Richard, when he was
Richard was not so nice.
AKA,
Yeah. Names, yeah. I was Felicity.
we all had to keep him in line.
Yeah.
So he became Grandpa Haw.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just remember he put ketchup on everything.
He eat people's lunches.
And he drove on curves.
Yeah. I remember him taking a nap out in his car and he was listening to whale sounds.
Did he give you all nicknames?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I've been Bubbles, Lucy, Hextol, don't do that. Calm down. Yeah.
What were you, Jean?
Free.
Free, yeah.
I was Fanny.
He's definitely.
He's gonna be missed, that's for sure.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
I don't have a big spiel. I just was thinking of nicknames, and I know that he gave me several nicknames, and I'm sure he gave a lot of other people lots of nicknames. So if you want to shout out your nickname that my dad gave you, feel free. I'd love to hear it. I was Jim or Mamie. Anybody else? Mindy. My brother was Android, of course. So I can't call him an Android. Go by Andrew now, and I can't. Juice. I can call my mother Juice. That was the cutest one. Did you have a nickname?
Filbert.
Filbert. Oh, that's an actual name though. That wasn't another thing that made him very unique is his gift-giving abilities. He always seemed to find a unique and special gift to give somebody that you probably can't find anywhere else. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say.
Yeah, which I'll second that on the gift giving. So
Yeah.
me
Well, I'm Steve, and Matt was a great friend. They say that I knew him for 30 years, but I think I only knew him for the last 5 years. And when I first met him I'm a BM pastor. When I first met him was in the dental van, and he scared me. And I had 7 little kids, and he was kind of a scary guy. You know, I didn't know what to think of him, and I mean, he stomped around in that dental van, and that thing, you know, would rock back and forth, and hear instruments and machinery, and would move around, and I thought, this guy's going to be in my mouth at a moment. And like Marty said, I've got a lot in my mouth because of Matt. But Matt would do other things too. There were times when he thought, oh, I can't do that, but, you know, I'm going to send you to a specialist. And I'll just take care of it. And so I began to see a different side of Matt. And then it was kind of a challenge. I thought, I really like this guy, but I can't get through to him. I can't ever begin a conversation with him. It was just real brief and to the point. And then I don't remember when it was, but one particular day I was in the dental van by myself. I didn't have my family with me. I was getting some work done. It was like the 3rd appointment. And I shot a question at him. I just thought, I'm going to go for it. And he opened up. And that began a different level of friendship. And in the last 3 years, we were meeting together for lunch once a month. He began to come to our men's Bible study. We communicated on a weekly basis primarily through texting, sometimes phone calls, about every other day. There's so much that I appreciated about him the more I got to know him. Our lunch times, I thought they were going to be, you know, half an hour, 45 minutes. He always insisted on bringing lunch, and he had to come to the church. So I tried to arrange going to a restaurant or doing something else, and no, had to come to the church. And then he would sit down, he would throw the lunches on the table, and hit the table like that. And throw his Bible down. I thought, okay. But he did the same thing every time. And you just throw the lunches. They'd usually be like sandwiches, and I'd say, I guess I'll take whichever one spins toward me. And then he began to just pour out his heart. He had a lot of struggles, like you said. But always wanted the truth. It was always a struggle to find the truth. But what was so great about Matt is he was just so transparent. You know, he had no time for cliche Christianity. No time for it at all. And I appreciated that so much about him because he was very intellectual. And a lot of his questions and a lot of his struggles would initially seem to be kind of on the intellect level, like, oh, he's one of these guys. But I told some of the people that are close to me in our Bible study, I said, he wasn't an intellect. An intellect wants to wow everyone with all that they know. Matt came to you telling you in the end all that he didn't know. And sometimes he would just lay his head on the table, or he would rub his face and his hair, and he was just in the midst of the struggle. And he would say, I don't know. And he'd point to me, what do you know? Like that. And oftentimes, I reached the same conclusion. So we came to the same conclusion. We don't know. All we know is we have a great God, and He's consistent. He's always the same. He's true. We're so grateful for Jesus Christ and His grace through all of these struggles and all of this stuff that we have to go through. But for a lot of those questions are unanswered. I just praise the Lord. Today, I know those questions are answered. It was a shock to me when he got sick, when he went into the hospital and he was gone so quick. It was a shock to our Bible study. These guys were transformed by Matt, and I tried to express that to him those last few days in the hospital. Because so much of the time it was like, what have I done in my life? I said, Matt, you have changed. All of those men around the table, there's about 15 guys and kids, some of the sons. I said, you have changed them. You have changed the way that they think. You have changed their ability to break through that Christian clicheism, that churchianity, and become real people as seekers of the truth. And he said, I did that. He looked at me and he said, I did that. I said, yeah, you did. Matt, you're awesome. And I can't wait to see you pretty soon, buddy.
I'm Gary Schultz. I also serve with Village Missions. Didn't really get to know Dr. Matt in a deep way like Steve, of course, but what I did know of him, I really appreciated. And humility was already brought up. And just want to pause for a minute. You wouldn't let me say thank you to Dr. Matt. You're great. One thing I'm not thankful for, the last day that I was in a chair and he was working on me, he'd pull all my teeth that I had left. It's amounted to quite a bit. But to get to that point, I called him up. He was just getting ready to retire from Willamette. And I was just going to ask him a question. Could you refer me to somebody who could work on my poor teeth and maybe give me some dentures going? And he says, yeah, let me call you back. He already knew what was going to happen, but he says, look, I'm going to retire here. I think he only had a couple months to go at that time. And he says, I got you an appointment. Come down, we'll get you started. And I said, well, I'm not a member of Willamette. He says, well, we're not going to worry about that. You just come off the street, give your name, they know you're coming. And he did it. He not only pulled all my teeth one day, and he put a bunch of gauze in my mouth and put both clips in there. He says, there you go. Thank you, Dr. Matt. He also worked on all 5 of my children and my wife.
You can still share, we're just turning the slideshow on.
I'm Josh, I'm Steve's son, and that is a lot of what I would say is what Dad already said, so I'll add a couple quick things. One, I've been living home for 20-something years, and so at that point in his relationship with Dr. Matt, he was still too scared to take the kids to see him, so I would go see a different dentist. Right? They hadn't quite got to that point yet where he was like, I'm not going to put you. I remember saying that to him at one point. He goes, he's great, he does a great job, but I'm not going to put you through that yet. He was too young. That was funny. So I didn't actually get to know Dr. Matt until he started coming to men's Bible study. I knew him as a legend, or kind of by reputation. And it just bears repeating. My son Christian is here, who knew Dr. Matt only through his interaction at men's Bible study, and insisted on being here today because of the impression that he made on him. And what he did was, for anybody that kind of grew up in the church, obviously we've got some Village Missions folks here, a Bible study, certainly a men's Bible study, can become very kind of call and repeat, right? It can become the situation where everybody knows what the correct answer is supposed to be. Okay, we're studying whatever this passage is, and here's the thing, and this is the answer, and so on and so forth. And so you go, who has this answer? Oh, I got that one. I got that one right. Okay, you got the right answer. Good for him. Matt wouldn't have any of that, right? So if he didn't care about a particular question or set of questions, he wouldn't say anything for an hour, right? Matt was here, he might have his head on the table, whatever, but he just wouldn't say anything. But when a particular question would fascinate him, it was never the right answer, it was never the pat answer, but he would really dive into it, right? He'd have something he was struggling with, he'd want to throw it on the table, and he'd literally, to Dad's point, throw it out on the table. So he would sit there and he'd go, okay, and he'd put his hands up, and he'd usually have his eyes closed, and he would deliver whatever it is he was struggling with, whatever his answer was, and then he would throw his arms down on the table and go, how about that? And it would set off a great round of debate. and oftentimes we disagreed. Oftentimes we had to dig deeper into something. More often than not, it would delay whatever the subject was that we were trying to get through, so that it would take multiple weeks instead of an hour. But it was great, and I think that my brother Jeff and I were talking about this the other night. We were having dinner, and we were talking about Dr. Matt's passing, and just how sudden and challenging it was to process. And we had looked forward to that time together every week, and now it was kind of just gone, right? And we were saying, for us, in the limited capacity that we interacted with him, what was his kind of lasting legacy in our watch, or like in my son's life? I think about Dr. Matt having passed away now, but my son Christian will carry forward some of the things that he learned and some of the things that were opened up through that study for another 60, 70 years, God willing, right? And the legacy is that it blew the doors off the type of debate, the type of discussion that we could have as men. It took the boundaries off things that were taboo to challenge or talk about, and just say, what is the truth here? What is the deep? There's something you're struggling with that goes beyond the pat kind of Sunday school answer. That's okay. Let's talk about it. Let's put it out on the table. And it's even okay to be wrong, right? And to say, no, I think we're on the wrong path on that one. We're not going to get there. And that's a legacy that he's left us as a group of 15, 20 guys. That is incredible, and I don't believe will fade away. I think he's permanently changed the way that we debate and talk to each other and dig into some of these things. And I know for me, and I think for some of the other men who are here today too, it's changed the way we do those things in my own home, right? The way I sit and talk about things with my children and my wife. And so I'm just incredibly, incredibly grateful for that. So I didn't really get to know Matt other than maybe the last 3 years of his life. But it left an impression on me and changed the way I think and talk about things that I'll carry forward for as long as the Lord sees fit to give me. So I'm very, very grateful to Dr. Matt in that respect. Although I have none of his initials in my mouth. So.
I'm David Potts, and my wife and I were Matt's longtime next-door neighbors. And this new family had moved in next door, and we hadn't even met them yet. And we were waking, 11 or 12 o'clock at night to Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, blasting out so loud that on the opposite end of the house we could hear it. And she said, "Where's that coming from?" "Next door." "Well, you've got to go do something." I don't know this guy. So I went over, and Matt was in his favorite car, sound asleep with the seat laid back, blasting music. Knocked on the windshield 3 or 4 times, and he finally woke up and said, "Could you turn the music down a little bit? We can't sleep." He was so embarrassed, but he was the nicest guy. And one of my regrets in leaving Portland was to lose him as a next door neighbor. We still came and visited him from time to time. My wife and I call ourselves neighborhood activists. When we'd go and visit him, he'd say, "What's going on in the world?" And we'd fill him in on some of the local political stuff, and he finally said, "That's enough, can't take anymore." And we move on to other things. I just love and dearly miss Matt.
I just want to add a couple of things. I'm also one of Pastor Steve's sons, so what my brother and my dad said encapsulates much of how we knew that. But I just want to add a couple of things. My earliest memories of Matt is going with my dad when he would go to have Steve work on. I don't know how old I was, but I was pretty young. And for whatever reason, he would take me with him. I think just so, I don't know, maybe make him a little less, maybe he was probably hoping he'd be a little less sturdy if the old kid was there. And I would just sit in the RV, and he had these little toys, and I would just play with them while he worked on Steve. But then later, when he started coming to our Bible study, then I got to know him a little bit more, and it was very, very interesting. I mean, it was just, to me in particular, I didn't know him as well as obviously my dad or even Josh or Mike, but it really made an impression on me to see a guy who had been studying his Bible and asking all these different questions and things for decades, to still be just as intrigued and excited and mystified by the things he was reading as someone who had just picked up a Bible. I mean, it just really made an impression on me. And I like Dr. Savannah, I remember him bringing up things, and he would ask a question, or he would give some opinion on something he'd been thinking about for weeks, and then he would look at my dad or one of the Bible study leaders, and he'd be like, "Is that am I on the right track? Is that right?" And my dad would be like, "Yeah, I think so." Yes. And it's like it was just fascinating to see the just him. I know he was far from perfect, and who is, but it was fascinating to see him struggle with things very honestly and get excited about things and share these things with us. It just really brought a new, I don't know, I just kind of another meaning to the set of the week. So I'll miss him a lot.
So my name is Kimmy. I'm Chris's cousin. I don't know any of y'all, but I met him twice. You're gonna bear with me because I'm gonna cry through all of this. If there's one truth to the measure of his character, is his love for his children. We have the privilege of having him at our home for Thanksgiving. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Such a sweet man, and I wish that I had more. But my gosh, I love you, brother. I haven't met you, but such a sweet man.
He told us all about the dinner.
Yeah. We had a great time. He's just so into these elevated conversations and just funny and love puns. Dad jokes and just what a sweet, sweet man. And we feel so lucky to have met him, and my only regret is I wish we knew him more.
I'm Papa. I watched Matt grow up. As a village missionary, he was in our house. Andy, you were 6, 7, came to Long Creek. Next year, Jaime came. Then you got too big to do that, didn't want to do it anymore. Then he went through his rebellion. And then Jaime had a little section there too. We talked about you kids. Haven't seen that for a couple of years now, but he's so proud of you guys. Matt was unique, and probably as a Christian, he put it to you, whether you knew Christ or not, that you had to make a decision about what Christianity was. And for him, truth mattered, but more so, practical truth. We had discussions. He didn't like pastors who sit in their office 8, 10 hours a day and prepare your message. He said they're worthless. So he came to Long Creek. He was in Long Creek. Had an ambulance call. I was driving an ambulance. Hey, Matt, you want to go on an ambulance run? Yeah, let's go. So we went to John Day, came back. He was so excited that some pastor was doing something practical to help people. Because that's the way he was wired. And he appreciated that. And speaking of truth, a couple of years ago, about 4 years ago, he was going through some rough times after your mom died. And we had hours of Bible study. We had hours of just chit-chat. He'd come down to Dallas and spend time with us. Come in, sit in my lazy chair, kick his feet up and go sound asleep. Then lunch would happen, and then we'd have a discussion. And there was wringing some hands and slapping, and he had everything there was. And the one thing that I know that he struggled with was, there's truth, and then there's God. And they go together. And he struggled with that. I think we came to an agreement. Steve, you probably will understand this even more so. I think we got to the agreement that what God said in his word was truth. And that made him secure to know that his salvation was real. He still struggled with that. As I watched him grow and mature, I think that God put Dr. Matt in Village Missions because each one of you missionaries and myself, we had a part of his encouragement to follow Christ and to make it real. You might say you're a Christian, but if it's not real, he didn't care for that. Make it real. And that was his life. So, kids, have a great dad. He was a good dad. And he was so proud of your achievements. Every time we met, it was, can you believe what these kids are doing? Wow, I'm so amazed. They're my kids, I can't believe they did it. He come home and blame himself for being your dad. It's not his shit. Doesn't matter. But he loved his family, and he loved the Lord Jesus Christ.
Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. I think that was a huge blessing for Indy to hear those stories. The benefit of me getting to be up here, if I get to finish off with a couple of stories about Uncle Matt. So I started dating Matt's niece, like I said, about 4 years ago. And Matt was one of those people that always made sure I was welcome into the family, even before I officially joined the family. One of the family traditions was a woodcutting trip that we would go on every year, about every other year for a few years there. And so it was my father-in-law, and Matt, and Grandpa George. And we would head up into the woods. Chuck would usually organize the trip. We'd get up into the woods, and Chuck had a big pickup truck with a big trailer. So we would get up there and we would load the truck and we would load the trailer. And then Chuck and George would drive that back down to their house in Damascus. And Matt and I would be left up in the woods because I guess we were the young guys that could stay up there and run the saws for a while. So I got to know him pretty well. At least according to Matt, as a dentist, he was trying to watch what he ate so that his breath was okay since he was having to eat right in people's faces. But on those trips, that would all change. He made sure that every meal he had something that had onion, garlic. I don't know that I've seen as many cans of sardines. anywhere but on those trips. I will never forget that. When he was working for Willamette Dental, he would end up in Salem where we live, so he would always reach out and want to do dinner with us, and that was one of the points of conversation is about me and Jaime. I'll probably was with you guys. When Matt's brother Chuck was fighting his brain tumor, Matt came to visit one day when we were there, and I remember Matt walked into the house and said, "Hey, Chucky, it's snowing." And Chuck just got a smile on his face. It was July. I was sitting there very confused, not being in on the secret. Later, at his brother's celebration of life, Matt explained the story. He was the youngest of 3 brothers. He was about 9 years younger than Chuck, so I'm sure they had a lot of fun teasing him. And so as young boys, Chuck and their other brother Mark would come in and, "Matt, it's snowing." Matt would run to the window and always be disappointed. So when we went up to visit Matt in the hospital, we're driving up there, and it was actually snowing. And I walked in and I had said something to Mindy, and so Mindy's first thing to Matt was, "Hey, Uncle Matt, it's snowing." And it really is. Matt will be missed, and I think your guys' stories and everything are a testament to that in his life. I want to pass along some advice that a friend gave me at one point. As we remember Matt, laugh, cry, share stories, keep his memory alive. Thank you all for being here. There is a guest book out back. If you did not sign that, I'm sure that family would love to just kind of, sometimes days like this can be a blur, and go back and look at that. If you have other stories, continue to share those. And thank you all for being here.